Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pert.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today?
Good.
How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things I'm talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poet. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. He'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. They'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First
the
Contact
truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact. Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Today is the 21st. So here's what we're dealing with today. Just within the last hour, we've made a transition into a new moon sign, which is Pisces. Last night, we made a transition into a new sun sign, which is Gemini. So we've got a lot of newness going on here. So Gemini and Pisces. We could see here that there is a square that is just taking place about now between the moon sign and the sun sign. So between Gemini and Pisces. So Gemini is a air sign. Pisces is a water sign. So air are words and actions. Water is emotions. So you've got words and actions and emotions clashing with each other in this square. What will come out of it? Well, that is the idea. That is what we're trying to figure out here. And just think about how those things work together. Emotions can fuel the words that you speak in a way that the words can be very passionate, or the emotions can overwhelm the words so that the words become very more emotion filled. They can be angry, they could be sad, or we could go the other way where the words can overwhelm the emotions and we just start acting without thinking, where the emotions push our buttons. Remember, Pisces, one of the symbols of the Pisces are the fish swimming the opposite ways. And so with that you have emotions that are pushing the buttons. So with this lesson coming up, we want to learn not to have our buttons pushed, and if they are, that we're able to deal with it in a way that's more effective rather than jumping back and forth. Alright, today on our numerology, we've got the number 6. Here's how we've gotten to that. 5, 2 plus 1, 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 4. That's a 5 and a 3 and a 7, which equals 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So today our numerology is a 6. So here's all of our symbols for today. This is our numerology. Relates to the tarot card of the Lovers, number 6. This also is the tarot card of Gemini. So we have some good synchronicity going on between the numerology of the day and the sun sign that we're just starting. And then the moon sign, it's this one right here. It's the moon. The moon is all about faith. You notice in this card what you have here is you have creatures coming from the water. And then as they're coming from the water, they're evolving. So we're moving from the liquid of life, the emotions, the fluid of life coming out as a creature, evolving from a wolf into a more domesticated creature as the dog. And then what we have is the pillars, which represent what is known. Everything on this side of the pillar is what is known, and on the other side of the pillar is the unknown area. So as we evolve in life, what this says is that we move from what we know into the unknown. And therefore, the moon shining down upon us is a lesson there to teach us that as we continue to focus on the subconscious of life, it helps us to maintain our lessons of faith, because we realize that this thing of life that we're in, we're not all alone. We are walking this life, and we are continuously in connection with a higher power. And so if we maintain that connection between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind, then we can walk the path faithfully. Now, with Gemini, what we have here, this is important. We have the male, the female, and the angel. The male, as we know, is the conscious mind. The female is the unconscious mind, and the angel represents the superconsciousness. So the whole idea between the card of the Lovers is for the masculine or the conscious mind to pay attention to the subconscious and the subconscious to be focused on the higher self. And that way, if we do this, we have a nice, good balance between what the mind is thinking on the outside, what it's thinking on the inside, and what it's paying attention to. The Hebrew letter on this card is Zayin, which means sword. And a sword, if you take the first letter sword away, what have you left with? Word, or words. So this is about words, action, a sword of discrimination that comes in, helps us to cut away the things that we don't need. So again, with this card, it's all about learning to make choices. And the better the choices we make, the better our lives are going to be. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with the card of the Lovers, with Gemini, looking at the duality. So when we have the duality, we have choices before us. Okay, now let's see where we fall upon the tree here. So our 6 for the Gemini and for today's tone goes right here, from understanding to the heart, to beauty. Okay, so the classroom of understanding. We see the little symbol here showing us this is a classroom or a lesson of Saturn. So understanding and discipline are connected here. And when we make the proper choices and we use our discernment, we're able to take that understanding to heart. We're able to really move back to the heart place because we've come to a different place of understanding how things work and how that applies to our lives. If we look at our moon sign, we're down here. Here's our moon sign going from the mind of splendor. Here's this little symbol of Mercury. So we're going from the mind to the foundation. The moon teaches us that our mind can play tricks on us, so we often have to keep ourselves focused on where we're going. And having faith sometimes is the best way to focus our attention, because faith allows us to be able to step past what we know into understanding that there's a bigger picture. Sometimes things that we don't necessarily know, but if we just allow them to be, things will work out well. Alright, so those are what we're looking at today on the tree. And remember, we're always just learning to get back to the middle pillar. The pillar of severity, the pillar of mercy, and the pillar of balance. And within the side of mercy, there are qualities that are masculine qualities, and within the side of severity, there are feminine qualities. So in both instances, you have masculine and feminine properties working together, and then they balance themselves out in the middle pillar here. Our current moon phase is the third quarter, 49% full, making its way down to the new moon. Today, or tonight, when we look up at the sky, it says the western twilight arch of spring is sinking, but you can still catch this big landmark when the stars come out. Jupiter is in the west, lies within it. Pollux and Castor, which are the 2 signs for the Gemini, are above Jupiter and are lined up roughly horizontally. They're the arch's top. Look far to the left, lower left for Procyon, and further to the lower left for Minkalenen, and then bright Capella. Jupiter is moving closer to the arch's upper left side. So Jupiter was what we're going to see prominent today in the west. And then above that, the Gemini, Pollux, and Castor. The Mayan Oracle, we're at a 8-tone day. 8 tones are called the galactic tones of integrity. Today is the symbol of the night, which is about our dreams and abundance, and the guide for today is the hand, which is accomplishment. So today is the galactic night, guided by the hand. The warrior, which is our theme for this 13 days, is our like-minded energy today. And our challenge is the Skywalker, exploration, and the hidden power is reflection. Understanding how we are a reflection of all that is around us and vice versa. The phrase, I harmonize in order to dream, modeling intuition. I seal the input of abundance with the galactic tone of integrity. I'm guided by the power of accomplishment. And then today is a galactic activation portal day. Here we have the 1, 2, 3rd column over and 3rd row down. That's why we have the synchronicity right here. We're at space weather. Our solar wind is currently at 315.6 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is quiet. Yeah, it looks like a little coronal hole right here, but nothing significant to be worried about or concerned about. M-class flare still at 10, X-class 1, and geomagnetic storm activity looks like it was about where it was yesterday, getting up to 30% in the high latitudes. And last, let's look at our Jewish calendar for today, the 21st. And what I want to do is I want to delve a little deeper into the Jewish calendar, because if we click on these each day, they have a little bit more insight. So today we're going to look at that. 21 Liars, the name of today. And it tells us here, let me just read a little bit here. Of course, it has the history of what went on during this. And it says that tomorrow is the 37th day of the Omer count. Since on the Jewish calendar the day begins at nightfall of the previous evening, we count the Omer for tomorrow's date after nightfall. Today is 37 days, which are 5 weeks and 2 days to the Omer. The 49-day counting of the Omer retraces the ancestors' 7-week spiritual journey from the Exodus to Sinai. Sinai is where they received the 10 Commandments. Each evening we recite a special blessing and count the days and the weeks that have passed since the Omer. The 50th day is Shavat, the festival celebrating the giving of the Torah and Mount Sinai. Okay, and here's some of the teachings if you want to focus on some of these. So the teaching of Kabbalah explained that there are 7 divine attributes, or Sephirat, that God assumes, through which he relates our existence: Hased, Gevurah, Tefera, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut, which are love, strength, beauty, victory, splendor, foundation, and sovereignty. These are all the names of those particular classrooms. These are 7 of them. In the human being, created in the image of God, the 7 Sephirah are mirrored in the 7 emotional attributes of the human soul: kindness, restraint, harmony, ambition, humility, connection, and receptiveness. Each of the 7 attributes contains elements of all 7. For example, kindness and kindness, restraint and kindness, harmony and kindness, etc., making for a total of 49 traits. The 49-day Omer count is thus a 49-day step process of self-refinement, with each day devoted to rectification and purification of one of the 49 Sephirah. Okay, very good. So that kind of gives us a little more insight into the Jewish calendar, gives us an insight of what kind of energy we're dealing with today. Let's move on. UFO News is up next.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. Today, our first story takes us over to the moon. This is an Apollo 10 photograph, which was recently discovered. I believe it was by StreetCap 1. It says this object on the moon was discovered by StreetCap 1 of YouTube. Yep. At first glance, the 2 objects look to be hovering, but they are actually structures in the crater. These structures are what I call the white ceramics, shiny white structures that have a surface of that like white ceramic. This was taken during the Apollo 10 mission. Okay, so as we back up, you'll see this is actually an image in a crater. There they are right there. So either this is something that got superimposed on the screen, or it is something that has some reality to it. And again, all of these pictures are available for you to look at. You can see the links are here. If you go, you can find the link to this picture and many others. And that's what's going on. Folks are looking at these pictures, researchers, and they're finding anomalies in the pictures because they're not all captured. Not all captured indeed. All right, let's move from Apollo mission now over to Winnipeg, Canada. It says I was filming IR during the daytime infrared and caught the event take place. On the right-hand side, a UFO moves out of the way of an oncoming jet and then proceeds to pick up speed as it follows it off camera. 48-second video. Okay, you see the little object right there? It's on the right-hand side, and it's a pretty good shot there. That looks like the jet. Okay, So again, enlarge the screen, you'll see it better. There's our little UFO making its way up. See it? Right above the cursor. Alright, from there we're going to go over to Roosevelt Lake in Arizona. On May 16th, I was returning from a father and son church outing, and I decided to take back roads home in order to try my new dash helmet cameras. As I traveled down the road, I spotted a blinking light either on the lake or possibly hovering over the water near the Roosevelt Lake Marina. It did not appear to be a boat. It started rising up in the air, and I figured it must be a helicopter dipping water from the lake for fighting a nearby forest fire. However, I was coming down the mountains, and there did not seem to be any smoke on the horizon. I put my camera on the light and started the video while I continued down the road. The aircraft, or UFO, because it no longer seemed to be a conventional aircraft, accelerated from the vertical position headed towards me. Within seconds it was passing over me, and I was so engrossed in trying to identify the aircraft that I almost ran off the road. That's when I lost track of the UFO, and when I recovered control of the car, the craft was gone. I realized I had just witnessed an extraordinary vehicle event, and I had it on video. It did not dawn on me just how fast this UFO was until I had got home and did some GPS coordinates comparisons and could estimate the distances involved. Since the light appeared fairly close to the Roosevelt Marina, and I know my precise location, I came with an estimate of 10.5 miles. Timing the video from where I could see it and the time, I lost track of it. I came up with 17 seconds. Here is the math. 17 seconds divided by 60 gives me the ratio of a minute. Divided that result by 60 and you come up with the ratio of time per hour. Now for the speed, according to the maps, it traveled approximately 10.5 miles in that 17 seconds. That means it was traveling an average speed of 2,223.54 miles per hour, and that includes the acceleration time. Therefore, it had to have slowed down when it passed over my car. It says here's some interesting observation, but there was no hint of afterburners. There wasn't a sonic boom. Okay, so that's a good sighting right there, and check the link out. Now we're going to go from there over to Utah. These videos are taken on several nights in Ogden, Utah. Not a lot of information was given by the submitter. He was sky watching, checking out the moon, and saw movement. He thought it might be a drone. He saw many orbs, either individual orbs or one large object. They finally moved out of his field of view. What you will see are the objects of non-symmetrical shapes. So there's one that just went up the screen there. The video itself is 2 minutes 12 seconds. And certainly different objects were catching up here. Okay, here we go. Here's some more images coming up of there we go. So either that's one object or a whole group flying in formation. Looks more like it's a group in formation because it just, the shape is kind of interesting. Can't imagine that shape would be a shape that would be designed, but certainly flying formation makes sense. Alright, let's move from here. This is dealing with the British Ministry of Defense still withholding secret UFO documents. Well, it's not like it's the first time anyone ever thought this, and I'm sure it won't be the last. The British Ministry of Defense is still withholding high-level UFO public policy papers, along with other UFO documentation, despite the public stance that all material has been transferred to the National Archives, according to John F. Burroughs, a retired USAF security officer. Burroughs, 53, was stationed at RAF Bentwaters in the late 1980s and witnessed one of the most significant UFO events in English history. Speaking to the Sedona MUFON section meeting on Friday, May 16th, Burroughs surprised the audience when he presented first results of his analysis of a declassified British MOD document, along with the stunning revelation that the MOD, despite the widespread perception that they turned all classified UFO documentation over to the British National Archives, is still maintaining at least 6 major UFO UAP policy papers, along with other documentation as classified, including a paper on defense policy and UFOs. The last is presumably a clear refutation of the MOD's stance that the UFOs, or at least UFO reports, are not of defense significance. However, since it remains classified, there is no way to know. Burroughs' 2-hour presentation included a brief review of the recently published book by St. Martin's Press, Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, co-authored with fellow USAF Security Officer Jim Peniston and former MOD UFO Desk Administrator Nick Pope. The discussion of the Sedona coordinate, a location specified by one possible decoding of retired Technical Sergeant James Peniston's controversial binary data, and details of Burroughs' struggle with the VA to acquire his complete service medical records, some of which have since been classified by unknown components of the U.S. DoD. The presentation fit together a number of pieces of an increasingly complex puzzle about what actually happened in the waning days of December 1980 in a forest outside of the Joint Base RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, a key frontline Cold War U.S. air base in East Anglia. It offered a novel possible explanation of the mysterious classification of his missing medical data beyond the ongoing scandal of the VA lack of a treatment of veterans that recently forced the head of the VA to resign. Okay, so there's more to the article. I'm going to leave that to you. But again, hearing that the MOD is withholding documents doesn't shock me. Does it shock you? Are you surprised to hear that an agency out there who claimed to be giving all the information up really hasn't? No surprise there. No surprise. Just another in a long line of the disinformation that seems to go on out there. All right, John F. Kennedy, last UFO story for today. We all know about how he was assassinated. However, there are stories, and you probably heard some of them, about him and his UFO experiences and what he wanted to do, which might have led to his death. John F. Kennedy's assassination has something to do with UFO disclosure. This is possibly revealed by WikiLeaks' Stratfor UFO files. Dated on December 12, 1963, Kennedy informed Chief of the Counterintelligence Staff of the CIA, Jesus Eggleton, that he was preparing everything to disclose UFO intelligence data with the Russians through the NASA's director. On the same day, Kennedy requested Intelligence Community Board member James E. Webb to start the peace process towards the Russians through joint space exploration. Webb most likely interpreted the plan programmed by Kennedy as sharing classified UFO data. The memorandum by Kennedy that he outlined for Angleton includes disclosure request of high-threat cases and clear distinction between known and unknown. This is to prevent the Soviets to mistakenly think that the extended cooperation was just a cover for intelligence gathering of their space programs and defense. Lastly, Kennedy wanted Angleton to make a program for data sharing with mission directors of NASA in their defensive responsibilities. This was not acceptable to the CIA and to Angleton. Kennedy had made known that he was ready to break the CIA into 1,000 pieces just to force them to hand over their most guarded secret. This memo has been passed around, possibly seeking consensus on the request. It was a hot case that Angleton had to deal. The question remains a mystery whether Angleton set up or intentionally supplied the needed things for the murder of the century. Okay? So you may have heard that one part of the story that goes along with this is that it was in the glove box was actually a speech that Kennedy gave, that he had given it to the gentleman up in the front of the car, I forget his name, and that he had put it in the glove box, and then later, years later, his assistant who had it at that time revealed the contents of this. Is it true? I don't know, but it certainly seems par for the course, because we know that Kennedy was wanting to do some things different in the world of disclosure. So just another connection that's in there that you probably have heard of. Anyway, that's our UFO news. I'm going to be back. Today we're going to continue on with Urantia, because it's a big study. We're going to do that on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I'll be right back, and we'll continue on. Stay tuned.
Come into our circle, Great Spirit. Fill our souls with peace. Oh, 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 oh.
continuing on. Alright, before we get into the Urantia, I've got one piece I want to play. I've had some emails and requests for some more information from Br.Nathaniel. So that's what I'm going to play right now. This is a piece called Stop the Jews from Rebuilding the Temple. So I thought this one would be an interesting piece for today. Here we go.
Zionist Jewry is pushing for the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Plans have been made, laws and blueprints drawn up, even the furniture is ready to go. But there's a problem. There's no priesthood. The Romans destroyed the records of the priesthood with the Second Temple in 70 AD, and all secondary records eventually disappeared. This was admitted by Maimonides in the 12th century. He wrote that when the rabbinic Messiah comes, who the church knows will be the Antichrist, he would verify, that is, fabricate the pedigrees of the priesthood. Every Jew is told that he's a Kohen, a priest descended from Aaron, but no Jew can prove it. When Ezra directed the building of the Second Temple, if a priest couldn't show his papers proving his ancestry from the tribe of Levi, he was thrown out of the temple. Today, no Jew, no matter how religious, no matter how famous, can prove his priesthood. No priesthood, no temple. It's bogus. Rabbi Chaim Richman of the Temple Institute peddles some more bogus.
The Temple Institute is a very unique organization because it was founded with the sole purpose of doing as much as possible to raise the consciousness for the Jewish people and really for the whole world. It's seen by the Torah as the vehicle that brings about a certain spiritual reconciliation between all of mankind and God. And of course, every prophet of Israel tells us that the time will come when the temple will again be rebuilt.
No way. The prophets foretold the building of the Second Temple, not a third. The prophet Jeremiah proclaimed that at the coming of the new covenant, which we are now under, the temple would be no more and not needed. That's in Jeremiah chapter 3. And Ezekiel's temple is obviously figurative for the church, since the outside wall's perimeter is smaller than the temple itself. Rabbi Richmond makes another laughable claim. Not only does he tout the glories of the chosen people, he tells us that the rebuilt temple would actually be a blessing for the entire world.
You know, we're called a kingdom of priests and a holy people, the chosen people. Now, not everyone is comfortable with that appellation. I woke up one morning and there it was. I didn't fill out a form. It doesn't mean that we're the best pediatricians and Wall Street brokers and film producers. We happen to be that also, but that might be a coincidence. This is what we're promised when the Holy Temple is built, that it will once again become the focal point of the spiritual energy of mankind.
How could a bunch of dead lambs with their throats slit by a people with a superiority complex be a blessing for the world? It would be more like stink and rot, not spiritual energy. But behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, declared St. John the Baptist. The real Messiah has come, the Lord Jesus Christ, and with him the new priesthood after the order of Melchizedek has been established in the church, the Israel of God. We don't need some fraudulent, stinking, priestless temple that God himself destroyed. We have the true temple, the church. That's all we need for the salvation of the world.
All right, good words from Br.Nathaniel. There's always something to think about, right? Because we certainly hear about all of these events that will take place in our lifetime, and sometimes they're good, sometimes not so much. Okay, the Urantia book. Let's continue on. There's a lot here. So yesterday we delved into a bit of this understanding about what this world is about, right? And one of the things that I touched upon was this artist conception here. Let's look at this real quick. Just a reminder, this is paradise. And then this is paradise in the center of Havona. And then as we go back further yet, where it is in the order of all of the other super universes around it. And right here in the middle, this is where we are. This is Urantia, and the objective is to move from Urantia to the paradise. All right, which is, as we know, right there. Okay. We've also went over William Sadler to find out about him and how he was the one who was doing this work. He began with his work of working with patients that one spoke through that claimed to come from an extraterrestrial, and that this information continued to pour through time and time again and became the basis, foundation for this book. So today, where I want to go is, now that we have taken a look at the worlds and the universes here, let's go back here and I'm going to go to this link here. It says a study of the master universe. Look at this a little bit more further. Okay. Says the development of concepts of the Urantia book. Says after many years dedicated study and contemplation of the Urantia papers, William S. Sadler Jr. wrote a study of the master universe in which he develops concepts of the Urantia book. His untimely death, November 22nd, 1963, same day that Kennedy was killed, prevented him from seeing the fruits of his labor in print, whereby he could share his deep insight with all who might be interested. No major change was made in his original work, only minor editing. Okay, and I want to click on here. Let's start off with this forward. Okay, here we go. This work develops the author's concepts of the Urantia book. It is designed to explore the story of the master universe, and this story of the master universe is the story of creation and evolution. In the prologue to this study, we will explore that which comes before the eras of creation and evolution in the master universe. In the epilogue, we will try to explore that which may sometime develop beyond our outer borders of the master creation. That which comes before the master universe is mostly pre-creative. That which after the master universe is apparently super-creative. The story of the master universe is the story of creation. It is also the story of evolution, and the story of the growth and development of the Supreme Being and of God, the Ultimate. This study leads to the telling of three stories. There is the first story, the tale of the finite growth and development. Then there is the second story, the story of absolute or superfinite growth. At the very end, we can start but not finish the last story, the narrative of absolute growth. The narrative has been written as simply as the author could contrive. It has been kept relatively free from references to the text of the Urantia papers. Most of these references will be found in the appendices which support the narrative. Each appendix has been written with the intent that it should reasonably stand by itself as a short essay on a given subject. The narrative has been written for the interested readers, but the more detailed appendices have been prepared for the serious student. The reader may well ask, why was this work written? It is the place of a foreword to answer this question. The Urantia book is not written like a textbook. It is written more like a symphony. Wonderful themes of concept and movements of unfolding truth appear and reappear as the long story unfolds. Parts of the story are melodious. The melody develops with such appealing simplicity that the reader is held enthralled. The story of Jesus is like this, a beautiful story of a man among men who grew up to become the living revelation of God among men. We all love this story. Some of the papers in this book are not so easy to understand. The movements of the harmonics of the truth are more complex. The melody is not easy to grasp, but the beauty is still there, and even though it is less obvious. The study of the master universe has been undertaken in an effort to bring out the beauty of the complex melody movements of the Urantia papers. Many of the papers which seem to be complex, obscure, and far away are filled with exquisite movements of concept in the portraiture of living truth. And if the truth and the complex beauty of these passages can be grasped, then we might acquire a new horizon line against which to evaluate the things of this life and this world, and then we could perceive these things with greater insight of a new perspective, the most far-ranging perspective that our minds can grasp. We are all part of God's plan for the future, and these plans are so alive, so adventuresome, so challenging, and so beautiful that it does seem important that we learn to appreciate, however dimly, these plans do affect us. It is the magnitude and the complexity of God's challenge to us that obscures our comprehension of this challenge. It is the vastness of the unfolding adventure that makes it hard to understand. It is the endlessness of the eternal future that staggers our imaginations. And all of this is contained in the symphony of the concept of the Master Universe in the Urantia book. God's plans are partially disclosed in the Master Universe, and if we can comprehend these plans just a little better, we may be intrigued, challenged, and even inspired by the grandeur of the magnificent adventure that is being offered to us. If perchance the study of the Master Universe can bring God's plans just a little closer to our comprehension, closer to our feeling for the living truth of expanding growth, to the thrilling beauty of high adventure, and closer to the rewarding goodness of intelligent love, it will have served its intended purpose. And that is why this work was written. All right. So let's go to prologue. Just continue on here. The Master Universe is a future eternal reality. But accepting Havona, it is not a past eternal reality. The study of the Master Creation does not therefore properly begin until we are ready to consider Havona in relation to the post-Havona universes. In this prologue to the study proper, we will accordingly give attention to those eternity acts of deity which set the stage of space for the Master Universe, even for Havona itself. The prologue is presented in 3 parts. The first prologue is before the beginning of beginnings. We begin with the infinite. The second prologue is the Zero Age, before the times of Havona, an exploration of past eternity and the existential thesis or antithesis and synthesis. And the third prologue is the first universe age, the dawn of eternity, existential realities, existential trinity, the uniqueness of eternal Havona and the architects of the Master Universe. So, why don't we just look at the first prologue, get a little grasp of what this is about. Before the beginning of beginnings, we begin with the infinite. All through the Urantia papers, there are statements and observations suggesting that behind everything, before the beginning, there is the infinite. Somehow we arrive at the feeling that all of the different manifestations of reality, the absolutes, the deities, the trinities, are different aspects of different phases of the infinite. God seems to be the personification of the infinite. The Universal Father is the name we give to God in recognition of this relationship to us, his mortal children. Before the beginning of the beginnings, there is that being, that infinite one whom we know as God. His infinity must be the foundation on which he has built all the structures of deity, the absolutes and the trinities and all manner of other reality, deified and undeified, existential and experiential, actual and potential, time realities and eternal realities, perfect existences and imperfect existences, space creations and non-space creations. In short, everything and everyone that could exist everywhere and everywhen. This being, this infinite one, is likely known by 2 others, his deity equals, his eternal Son, and their infinite Spirit. So even as the infinite, God the Father is not without associates who understand him, but the 2 eternal coordinates of the infinite God are able to know him only because they share his infinity. To us, of the later appearing and experiencing orders of being, the quest for the infinite is the first and the final challenge. To accept such a challenge means that we are willing to embark upon an endless voyage of discovery in the quantitative infinity of God on the outside, while at the same time we are in the process of undertaking an equally endless qualitative exploration of that spirit fragment of God on the inside, the adjuster, and even now indwells in us, during this life in flesh. We will start this study with an exploration of the past eternity, and we will start it with the firm belief that the unproven basis for all that happens is the infinite, that being whom we call God. We will pursue the unfolding of this divine purposes as we are able to discern them throughout time and transcend time and on into future eternity, to see how far we may hope to progress in this quest for the final Father, the unqualified Father, the absolute Father, even the Father infinite. Okay, that's the first prologue. Let's go to the second one. See what this is all about here. If we are going to study the Master Universe, it would be a sound idea to start as far back as we can go. There are things that happened on Paradise in preparation for the Master Universe. The Master Creation develops through 6 major divisions of time. These are the 6 universe ages. We are now living in the second of these ages. The first age is the age of Havona, the central universe. This is the divine creation. It is the eternal core of perfection around which the rest of the universe, the Master Universe, is slowly revolving and is slowly expanding into the vastness of all outer space. Before the times of Havona. Eternity dawns with eternal Havona already in existence. Prior to the times of eternal Havona, there can be no factual reality, but we can still have valid concept, and this is an important distinction. Concept may be useful and valid without being factual. When we apply time-space language to pre-time-space reality, we can never grasp actual fact, but we can still hope to have a relatively valid concept. For example, in our system of counting, the number 1 is the first real number. Nevertheless, our arithmetic recognizes that behind the reality of the number 1 is the concept of 0. 0 is really not a factual reality, but it is certainly a valid concept, and our mathematics would do very badly without it. The first universe age is the first factual age, but behind it is the concept of the 0 age, an age before times of eternal Havona. The papers make use of the 0 concept without actually using the term 0 age. They speak of the dawn of eternity, a hypothetical state of affairs prior to the appearance of the infinite spirit and the central universe. It is this state of affairs that we propose to call the 0 age. Thinking about the 0 age is something like thinking about the 0 mark on a 12-inch ruler. We do not actually measure anything with this mark, but it does show where the first inch starts. Source relationships in eternity. When we try to think about origins and past eternity, we are in real trouble. For example, God is the father of an eternal son who is just as old as God. This can be very confusing, even disconcerting. Suppose we forget all about eternity and use some comfortable time language. If we do this, we will discover that there are 3 basic and distinct source relationships to be found amongst eternal realities: the 3 persons of deity, the Paradise Isle, and the central universe. A. If the infinite spirit of the central universes are eternal, then it logically follows that B. The eternal sun and the Isle of Paradise are more eternal or eternaler, because they are both in existence when the Spirit and Havona appeared. And if the Sun and Paradise are eternaler, then C, the Universal Father, is most eternal or eternalist, because he is the Father of the Sun and at the same time the source of Paradise. This line of reasoning helps us to think of at least 3 stages of development inside of eternity: eternal, eternaler, and eternalist. Suppose we start with the oldest of these. Let us go back, or in just as far as we can possibly go in concept, and then move forward step by step towards the first universe age, Havona, in actual factual reality. When we go back as far as we can go in our thinking about God, we find that we are trying to imagine what God would have been like before he became the Father of the eternal Son. This is a pre-Father concept of God. It is not a factual reality, but a valid concept. What was it like when God was all alone, before he had made any plans about creating anything? If we can think that far back, then we may be able to start at the very heart of the 0 age, and from there work our way outward towards factual reality. 1. Static deity. We are going to have to use a few rather uncommon words in this study. Words like static. We cannot avoid these words, but we can define them as we go along. Static is in part defined in Webster as resting, quiescent, not moving, active, or exerting force of any kind, stable. At the heart of the Zero Age, we find quietness, absolute stability. Nothing is moving. Here, God is all sufficient unto himself. He lives within himself. He is self-contained. He has an inside, but no outside, a within, but no beyond, an eternal present, but neither past nor future. He is self-existent. God is. Now, here is a point we should bear in mind. What we have just been considering is not something theoretical that existed a long time ago and then stopped. It is just as true today as it was the way back in the depths of past eternity, and it will go right on to being true for all future eternity. This means that we must think in a larger way about God. He can be static at the same time he is being everything else. He does all things, all these many things at the same time, and keeps on doing them all the time. He does not have to go from one thing to another. Potential deity. Now we are taking our first step away from the depths of the Zero Age towards factual reality, and again a definition is in order. The word potential. Potential is in part defined in Webster as follows: existing in possibility, not in actuality, becoming as distinguished from being possible, or in the making as opposed to the actual or realized latent. At this point, we are thinking of God after he had made a plan. He has done nothing about it as yet, but he is planning to do something. God has now proposed to do something, and that something accordingly became a possibility. It became a potential. We are at this point thinking about God after he decided to express his will. He is self-willed deity. Potentials have come into existence, and deity has become potential. Perhaps we can better understand potential deity if we make a picture of it. Suppose we go back and think of static deity as a circle with a dot in the center. Now let us squeeze the circle around the middle until we have something that looks like an hourglass. Let the dot be in the center of the lobes of the hourglass. Now pull the two lobes of the hourglass completely apart, and we have two circles. One of them has a dot in it. The circle with the dot we call deity. It has moved away from the other circle because God decided to do this. The other circle never moved. It is named not deity or non-deity. It does not have will. It cannot respond, but does not start anything. Oh, it does not have will. It can respond, but does not start anything. When God moves away from this non-deity circle, he changes what he moves. God thus has qualified the circle with the dot. At this point, we should use a word which has more than one meaning in English, the word qualified. We should define it. Qualified is in part defined in Webster as follows: competent, fit, having compiled with conditions, limited or modified in some ways. It is the last sense, limited or modified in some ways, that we are using the word qualified. What God is doing to the circle with the dot is to limit it, to modify it in some manner, in contrast to the circle left behind, which is not modified or qualified in any manner. Here's an example of what was just shown there. What is left behind is not changed, has not moved, is not qualified, hence is unqualified. Since all of this is happening on the absolute level, we will name the circle within, which is left behind, the unqualified absolute. This is the absolute that is not qualified, that is not modified. That which has moved, the circle with the dot, is modified, is qualified, is changed. It is deity as well as absolute. So we call it the qualified absolute, later to be called the deity absolute. Let us not forget that we are studying potential deity. We have studied the development of the two realities, the qualified deity, which is absolute, and the unqualified absolute. We should think of them as limitless reservoirs that contain all of God's plans for the future, and he will draw upon them as he makes his plans become real. As he actualizes his plans. If these plans have to do with things, with physical matter, not personal materializations, God will draw upon the unqualified absolute. If these plans have to do with spirit, personal beings, and the like, then he will draw upon the qualified deity absolute. Absolute associative deity. Now we are taking our next step towards the outer edge of the zero age of factual reality. Again, a definition is in order. Associative is defined as tending to, inducting, or characterized by association. Perhaps the first associative act we should note is the association of the two absolutes, qualified and unqualified. It comes about something like this. Since both of them come from the same original static reality, they are related, and the relationship between them is quite real. We could put it in this way. When the one becomes two, then we have one and another. The word "and" is also a reality, and universally links together the two absolutes that contain all of God's plans for the future. Since this linking up action is universal, it has been named the universal absolute. The universal absolute links the other two together like the middle link in a three-link chain. A good way to visualize the three absolutes would be to draw 3 circles so that the middle one is cut a little way into the other two. This makes a chain with 3 links. The linking up of the 3 absolutes is one of the associated relationships of eternity. We should now consider such other relationships. This is a new relationship which God enters into, through which he becomes the universal Father. The pre-Father becomes the Father. Up till now we have been thinking of God as if he were a pre-Father. Conceptually, we have been thinking of him as a pre-God as well as pre-Father. As we have been thinking of him as God, he is the absolute person. As the absolute person, he is the imprisoned by all limitations of being absolute. He fills all deity, the qualified deity absolute. He is all of deity. There is no deity outside of him. There is no room for action or maneuver. So God sets out to produce some room. What he does is separate himself from all deity, just as he separated himself from all reality when he moved the qualified absolute away from the unqualified absolute. So how does God do this? He does this by separating himself from the absolute person. When he separates himself from the absolute person, 3 things happen. A, in removing himself from the absolute person, God causes this being to exist separate and apart from himself. He thus becomes the cause and the source of this absolute person. B, if God is the cause and the source of something, and if that something is a person, then God is the father of that person. Therefore, if he can be the father of the absolute person, then God can be the father of any and all persons, and thus become the universal Father. And C, if God becomes the father of the absolute person, this makes that absolute person the original Son of God, but he is nonetheless the absolute person for becoming the Son of God. It is customary to speak of this original Son as the eternal Son because of all of the happenings in eternity. This is the beginning of the divine fraternity of the eternal persons of deity, which is soon to be completed by the appearance of the 3rd person of the infinite Spirit. Okay, I'm going to stop there because that's a lot to contemplate. But kind of get the idea, something I probably need to read through a couple more times to really have it sink in, but kind of get the idea. Just sort of, if nothing else, it just helps us to see how expansive God is, and it kind of puts in perspective when there are those on earth who claim that God doesn't exist, how far away they are from even considering any of the possibilities that really do exist. So it's interesting how people are willing to take a look at what's out there and how it all works and so on and so forth. All right. I'm going to move to today's channeled message. It comes to us from the Arcturians, and it has a commercial, so give me a moment here just for this commercial to end, and we're going to get right to it. All right, so what I'd like, here we go.
We are here in support of you. Channeled message from the Arcturians.
May 15th, 2014. Channeled by Paul Marwood. Transcribed by Paul Marwood.
Good morning, Paul. We are the Arcturians. As you know, we are here to help and assist humanity and Gaia to move forward in this ascension. Not only on your planets but in this galaxy at this time. As you began to understand, this ascension is a collaboration between the Creator, the heavenly forces, the heavenly bodies, Galactic Federation of Light, the humans, the animals, and even the plants and inanimate matter on this planet, including Gaia herself. There is nothing in this galaxy that isn't a part of this ascension process, for everything is connected to everything else. It is all part of a greater consciousness. That is why we are all working and striving together, to assist you to move to this new place, and, ultimately, you as humans, the ones need to step forward, assist, make your own choices, bring in the higher levels of consciousness to allow the consciousness of this planet to expand and grow to a new place where it has never been before. And you do that by leading the way, by expanding your own individual consciousness, extending it up output ever more into the higher dimensions, and bringing the aspects, the wisdom, the experience of those dimensions, and while you remain grounded on this planet you bring that information experience through and make a part of this reality. Therefore rising, raising, and taking this planet to a new level of consciousness, remember you are all connected, so while some may be partaking on this expansion of consciousness, and some aren't, that's okay. Because as you expand your consciousness, that which becomes known to yourselves, based in the crystalline grid, the information grids of the consciousness and the consciousness itself of this planet, consciousness of humanity, and all that exist on this planet. As more and more becomes known of the high dimensions, that information ripples out to those who have only recently started their journey. Once it is done many times, it is then easier for those that follow to achieve the same knowingness, the same experiences, the same connection to higher levels of consciousness. Understand that this is important in this time. Remember, you humans are the captain of your flagship in the free will zone, while Gaia, the creator, all of the Galactic Federation and higher dimensional beings including the angelic realm, are all here and all in support of you. Ultimately you have your free will. We want you to understand that we are here in support of you. Remember that you can also call on us for assistance, though there are still certain galactic laws that we can't transgress, so, unfortunately, there are some limitations in how much help we can provide to you. An example of this could be your governments, some global problems like Fukushima, environmental problems. These are part of the remnants of the old three-dimensional realm. But as part of expanding your consciousness and bringing in the new knowledge of the higher realms, solutions will become quickly and readily available, to make the shift, repair the damage and allow the process very beautifully and naturally transform. Remember, from a silic level there is much to be gained in learning the lessons, extending your consciousness beyond where you currently are, operating on higher levels of information and solutions, and bringing that into your current third-dimensional paradigm, allowing it to be transformed to a new level. If this was simply done with the flip of a switch, there would be less gained from a silic wisdom point of view. So understand that this is a process of working together, at all levels, at all dimensions. That is why we are here, for we have all much to learn and gain out of the ascension of this beautiful planet in this beautiful galaxy. For what happens here affects all. You have had great visionaries on this planet, you have many visionaries now and many more to come. Tune in with your inner guidance and align with those visionaries. Tap into their wisdom and seek inward the wisdom that you are, and that you can access as your many gifts start to grow and flourish. Remember, you a much needed assist this process from the ground level. Do your inner work, be a shining light, connect to those higher dimensions and begin to live and be all that you are, and that will ripple out into your world and assist so many others. We give you much love, for you are great beings of light. We are your brothers and sisters, and you will soon learn this is true. Be kind and gracious to yourself and all that are around you, for that allows a greater emanation of love, an expanded auric energy, and a higher frequency of yourself and all that is around you. For ultimately that is the goal. A greater connection with your higher self, the knowledge, the love, and all that is in the higher dimensions, your divine presence, and all that you are, which is much more than this physical body that you are aware of. We honor all of you. We are the Arcturians.
Alright, very nice message. Let's get to our meditation for today, so close your eyes and take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. And just breathe in and out slowly. And as you breathe in and out, just allow yourself to contemplate all that was discussed today. Allow your mind to explore the concepts of God that exist beyond what we, with our finite minds, understand. Allow yourself to be able to be open to understanding the depth and the majesty of the mind of God. And as you contemplate the ideas, begin to understand how, from book to book, from lesson to lesson, there were so many similarities and synchronicities. And as we begin to understand the similarities and synchronicities, we begin to find the simplicity in life. We begin to understand that we are learning the same lessons over and over, and that we're reminded through the teachings and the wisdom of the ages of how simple things actually are and how much things are actually connected. So imagine seeing all of the people of this earth, and imagine seeing them connected to one another, and imagine seeing the connections between the people and the land and the animals, and imagine the connection that we have down here with our space brothers and sisters, with the planets and the stars. And as you think down about the planet Earth, imagine the connection with all of those energies of the earth. And as you contemplate your connections to all, you realize and understand that the more goodness you put into the mix, the more everyone is affected in a positive way, because we are all connected. And therein lies our solution to all of our problems. To simply put goodness, peacefulness, and love into the mix of connection, knowing that this connection that reaches all will change and affect all in the positive way that the goodness and positivity is intended. So just imagine yourself going through the world today, sending positivity out. And as you walk and pass individuals today, just imagine the connections that you have with each and every one of them. Imagine the connections you have with all things around you. Imagine the connection you have with God. And let's let yourself contemplate these ideas today. Now let's bring our conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale, and open your eyes. That's it, my friends. Lots of information today. Lots of information to absorb. But it's all real good stuff, isn't it? Just kind of makes everything expand as we think of these bigger concepts and such. So thanks for being here. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Tomorrow we're going to continue on Thursdays we're going to continue on with the Buddhism. And so we'll be doing that tomorrow, amongst other things. So have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Keep loving each other. Peace. I'm out of here.